I wanted to join the Masters tournament, which is another smoking tournament. You weeks long. It's double elimination, and you know I just want to get more points because at the moment I'm fourth. I'm probably locked in, but I reckon like another like 3 or 4 points will probably guarantee me, just in case like someone makes like a massive jump right at the very end. Um, so yeah, but Series 13, hey Series 13. I might go back to some older tournaments and show off some of those games if I can be arsed, but I mean who knows. Um, but yeah, it's because this was Series 13. I had actually fully intended to take a break from Pokemon after Worlds. Um, and that didn't go well because then I joined 3 tournaments. Um, and I was like, oh my god, no more Dynamax. And then I was like, oh wait, hold on. Anyways, I'm also aware of the fact that the last video I recorded, which was 3 games of 3v3, was 15 minutes long somehow, and I'm off to a really bad start already by rambling. So I'm going to try and speed this up. This was the first ever time I played Series 13. So I was like, what do I want to use? I want to use at least one mythical Pokemon. There he is there. I was like, I'm definitely bringing something. Because I'd never used Marshadow, and I think Marshadow is like the best one. It's like basically the only usable one. I think Melmetal and Victini can also do something, but really not really. So I started with that. And then I basically just looked at what the top Mons were. And I watched a couple of replays. And I saw people keep getting swept by Dialga. So I was like, fuck it, I'll add a Dialga. It seems like a good time. Oh, okay, cool. I added a 12-best Yveltal because it seems like a good defensive pivot. It's nice to have it. Well, I think the Yveltal in this format is kind of mandatory. Zacian as well, really. I like Scarf Kyogre because it's a good cheeky way of just kind of stealing games. I guess, again, it's the people who don't really know the format as well, because you just lead it and you can just click Water Spout and then things will just die. This Groudon is funny though. This is like a... what's the word they used? I don't know. It's like a dickhead Groudon set. The idea is like you live the Water Spout in the sun, and then you fling Light Ball to paralyze the Kyogre. I know that Groudon learns Thunder Wave, so you'd be like, well, why don't you just go for that? But the guarantee, because you're only getting one off, so the guarantee is worth it. Because you Thunder Wave can miss. So like, 1 out of 10 times, I mean, it's gonna happen probably more than that. But yeah. Like I said, this was the first first Series 13 team I ever made. I was like, I wasn't really looking forward to playing, but I was like, I need to get at least a couple of points. And I was like, which I saw as I only really need to play one game. And I kind of hoped that my opponents would be as kind of inexperienced as me, but turns out they weren't. But anyways, this is my first set. I've got all my games here. I remembered to zoom in this time. I know nobody's told me to, but I paid attention, and yeah, but here we are. I like to lead Kyogre when I don't really know what to do, because it's just like, oh, I'll just click Water Spout. And that's what I do. They lead Necrozma. I crit them, but they say, oh, it doesn't matter. So, but that makes me think that they're either no bulk or they're physically defensive. So it's fine. So this turn, I'm not really sure what to do about Marshadow. I think I just Water Spout again. Because I know it will be Sash, because they all are. They can't really afford to be anything other than Sash. But I don't know how much damage it's going to do to me. And it actually did less than I expected, so that's not the worst thing in the world. I am very aware that like Marshadow can get out of hand. So like, I guess like the Sash is something that you might see me kind of fear a lot. Maybe not even in this game, but like just in future ones. If you can remember that long. But yeah, I know that I'm not in sneak range, so I'm just sort of like, there's no real point in switching out, because I feel like that's just gonna put me in a bad spot. Kyogre is my fastest mon. Like, if I get rid of this, then it's a 3-on-1, and like I feel like I don't need Kyogre anymore, because I have think I've got Yveltal and Dialga in the back. And I feel like those two together should be fine. I think, anyways. So yeah, they go for the sneak. Obviously trying to get the KO, it doesn't work. Technician boosted puts it a bit closer. I actually forgot about Technician when I was like, oh, I'll just stay in. Because I forgot to factor in the fact it's going to do considerably more. Zacian comes in. I do switch out there just because I think I wanted to save it for later anyways, just in case they didn't have quick attack. And I figured Yveltal was useless at this point in time, and it was a good way to scout. Unfortunately for me, they go straight for the Swords Dance, which is a great play. They know that I am in a situation where I can't spout because I'm going to do like 9 damage, and my Kyogre's at such low health that I can't afford to max it. So like if there was ever a time to set up Zacian, it was then, you know. So Yveltal goes down. I'm a little worried now because I bring in Dialga, and yeah, there's a couple of ways this can go. I have to max it because I need to be able to live the hit. The issue is I'm going to bring up a calc, which is I think this one. If they have close combat, I do not live the hit. So I have to hope that they just don't go for it, or they don't have it. And they either don't go for it, or well, they don't go for it, so they might not have it. They miss, which didn't matter unless they crit, because as I could show you, and then I will go back, but as I can show you, play rough. Oh, hold on, let me make it adamant just for the sake of it. Yeah, was never doing enough. It was always doing, like, they would have needed to crit, so it was close. I don't know why they didn't go for close combat. I think that the reason that they didn't was probably because if I was bulky Dialga, then this is me assuming that they do have a fighting move, by the way, because most Zacian do. I think they're more likely to drop play rough than they are to drop close combat or Sacred Sword. But anyways, my assumption was they don't know what kind of Dialga I am. So if I'm like Fizz Def, then I live the close combat, and then their defenses are lowered, and then they die. So I think they probably saw that as kind of safer, or maybe they wanted to just conceal that information. I honestly have no idea, but worked out for me, and I win the first ever game of Series 13 that I've played. So that was alright, wasn't it? So game 2 is where things start to go awry. I lead Yveltal because I wanted to cover Necrozma, and in my mind it kind of covered everything that wasn't Zacian, because I'm an AV, so I know that I will be able to take anything that Kyogre wants to go for. And as you can see, with the Sucker Punch and the damage and everything, it weakens it quite a lot. And so I didn't expect them to max here. In hindsight, that was probably a bit silly of me. But I go for Oblivion Wing, hoping that maybe they'd switch out. I'm expecting another Sucker Punch. They just max and do big damage to my Yveltal. The Oblivion Wing recovery does let me get an extra hit off, which was nice. And then I just go for Foul Play because that's my strongest move into Kyogre. Kyogre's attack stat isn't terrible. I would assume this is just offensive Kyogre, so not a lot of bulk, and it's got a lot of natural special defense, so just generally a better kind of a little bit more damage, because I'm not very highly invested. So I bring in my Kyogre. This, I'm gonna go through the thought process, and I'm gonna explain why this was a bad play. So I kind of got a bit kind of trigger happy. I was like, oh, I'll bring in Kyogre, I'll lock myself into Thunder, and then if they've got Marshadow, I'll max my Kyogre and I'll go for max Hailstorm, because then that will bring it down to Sash, and then Sash will KO. Because in my mind, Marshadow is this frail, tiny thing that can't take any hits, because that's what it is in a format of like Titans, but it is also still a mythical Pokemon. So this is a cautionary tale to do your calcs before you make the play in tournaments like this. So because I end up in a situation where I get the KO on their Kyogre with my Kyogre, which is fine. I'm faster, and then they bring in the Marshadow, and it's like, okay, cool. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, spoilers. I guess I go for Thunder. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go for my plan was to go for Max Hailstorm because I thought that would do enough, right? It'd break the Sash and get the KO because I'm used to anything that normally carries a Sash being very, very frail. Now, something I didn't know was that Marshadow has 90 defenses. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, I've got this really good play kind of lined up. I'll do that then, and then I run the calc, and I'm like, oh, that really does nothing. So then I'm like, okay, well now I'm kind of forced to max my Dialga, which is in the back, spoilers. But also it means I'm kind of forced to go for Thunder now, because I can't really. I guess I could have maxed it and then maybe switched it out versus Zacian. I don't know. But the point was, it was a kind of bad play because now if I'd gone into Dialga, I could just max Dialga, smack it with a Wormwind, and then knock it out with the next max move. And it wouldn't have mattered how much damage Dialga took, right? Because like all it needs to do is remove the Marshadow. Like, cause obviously I KO the Kyogre, and then Marshadow comes in, and then I remove that, and then I'm left with Scarf Kyogre versus Zacian, and Kyogre always wins that, unless they're like super specially defensive, but not a lot of them are. But yeah, so because I got a bit kind of like, I don't know, Kyogre happy, I end up in this spot where I'm like, okay, well I can't afford to switch out because I'll lose my Dialga, and then I'll be in the same situation anyways. I have to go for the Thunder Para, basically, and I don't get it, because they go for a close combat because it does more. And I'm like, oh, well, this isn't good. Yeah, and then I'm in sneak range now. So now I bring in Dialga, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll max it. Maybe I won't do. Maybe it won't do that much, but then it does like a half. Yeah, it does more than half, and I was like, oh my god, like how strong is this thing? And yeah, unfortunately as well, the slight amount of damage that I took, just like it. If I hadn't taken Life Orb Recoil, it would have been a roll for Zacian coming in because I'm at +1 defense. But the Life Orb Recoil puts me out of that range, which therefore just means I just straight up die. And this is where they revealed it. They did have close combat. They just didn't go for it in game 1. So I'm like, oh, well, this isn't a good time. So yeah. So this is game 3 now. Now I'm a bit like, oh god, what did I do? Because I'm starting to notice I don't really have what you would call a good Marshadow kind of switch in. Like, Yveltal can kind of take it on. Zacian, you might be like, oh, well, Zacian beats it. Zacian actually doesn't beat it. Because Marshadow's Spectral Thief steals the boost, and then Zacian just dies to Spectral Thief. Which is quite insane, really. And also, like, you bring it down to Sash, it can Shadow Sneak you, but you can't quick attack it. So I'm panicking now a little bit because I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about Marshadow. Like, despite the fact it was the thing I started team building with, I was like, oh, I'll use that. That looks fun. I didn't consider that my opponents would also have that option. I was like, they're gonna bring something like Celebi or whatever. Or actually, you know what I was hoping for? I was hoping they'd just take a sample team. But anyways, yeah, so I opt to lead with Groudon in this game because my mentality is if they lead Kyogre, Zacian, or Marshadow, I get the paralysis off. Like, it doesn't matter if Groudon does nothing else. If it paralyzes one of those 3 things, and in Marshadow's case paralyzes and breaks his Sash, I'm pretty confident I can just win. So here we go. They lead Necrozma again, so I'm a bit like, oh, I didn't really want to see that, because Necrozma doesn't really take a lot from special effective hits. I go for the fling anyways, because I figure Groudon's not really getting out of this exchange. They set up rocks. I decide that's a good thing too, because again, it's very scared of Marshadow. And also, it's nice to kind of chip away their Kyogre, because while I haven't seen their Kyogre's item, it could be Scarf as well. So yeah, my Groudon, I just kind of, yeah, I think at this point in time, we're both just kind of, we're happy to take the, well, I think they're happy to take the double down. I'm not really. I wanted a little bit more time, because now I'm in a situation where I lose my Groudon and they still have Necrozma. We're coming up to big mistake number 2 of the set, where I somehow make the exact same mistake again, and I hastily go into my Kyogre instead of my Dialga in the back. So yeah, this kind of, again, kind of locks me in. I'm going to just let the turns play out before I kind of explain why it was bad. So I just go for Spout because I want to just do big damage. It kind of stops them from being able to do anything really. They can't switch into it even with their own Kyogre because it'll do loads. So now they bring in their Kyogre, right? And this is kind of where I knew I fucked up, right? Because now I'm in a spot where I'm like, okay, do I max? Is it worth maxing? Because then I've got like just a crappy Dialga in the back that I know loses to everything when it's not maxed, except from this, obviously. But like, you know, if I'm maxing Kyogre, the point is that I'm trying to get rid of it. So yeah, like, so I'm already kind of feeling a bit stuck. I could try hard switching Dialga in, which in hindsight might have been a better play. I just opt to go for the Spout damage because I'm like, well, if I can maybe chip the Kyogre down, I can put it in range of one hit from my Dialga, and then that means that hopefully whatever's in the back will just lose to my Dialga. So that was the kind of option I went for there. Unfortunately, I don't really do a great amount of damage to the Kyogre, although I think actually it is still range for a max lightning. Yeah, I think it is. I think I go for that here. So another thing as well is I'm max speed and I still don't know what item or nature this Kyogre is. So this was potentially a speed tie, which is another thing I was kind of thinking of when I was like, okay, maybe I'll just chip it down with my Kyogre, because if my Dialga is faster, which it had, you know, the potential to be because it's max speed, then I should be fine, because max HP Dialga will always beat whatever else is in the back, because I've got Earth Power that smacks these 3, and then Marshadow will just die to whatever stab move I go for. So that was kind of my logic. So they go for a Geyser, so they either win the speed tie or they are maybe faster, I don't know. Because I might be modest. So Showdown's been deleting a lot of my teams, which has been really annoying. So I don't actually know. Like I showed the paste earlier, and it's got natures and everything, but this is just me guessing for the most part, because every now and then I'll just log into Showdown and then I'll be like, that team I was using's gone. Where's that gone? But anyways, so yeah, so they potentially win the speed tie. I know I was definitely max speed something. I was either max speed modest or I was max speed timid. So if I was modest and they were timid, then they always outspeed. But like, so they do a lot of damage, and because I don't have any defensive boosts, I'm always in range of anything that Zacian wants to go for, should it be the Mon in the back. And it is. And they just go for close combat and I just lose. So there you go. By FOD only upload wins. Oh, proved you wrong. Yeah, and I lost, and that puts me in the loser's bracket like literally right away. Like my goal is really just to get kind of 1 or 2 points, and then, you know, that puts me in the kind of like puts me in the kind of 20s area, and then I feel kind of comfortable, and not like I'm probably comfortable already, but like I remember the first time I qualified for Worlds, it was a similar kind of system but larger, where you had to place in a certain thing, and it turned out I was like safe months in advance, but like there are scenarios where I could be eliminated, and it's just like, you know, paranoia and whatever. But anyways, backtracking ever so slightly, back to the misplay basically. If I had gone into, so if I had gone into Dialga this turn, what I could do is max my Dialga right away and KO this with anything. Because it's paralyzed, it's at 8 health, it will die to anything. So what I could do then is go for Steel Spike, get a defense boost. And Dialga is nice because it does wall Kyogre. So they have to then choose, okay, well, what do I do here? Do I go into my Zacian, get a big hit off, and let it die? Which in that scenario, they would do maybe about 50% because I'd already have a defense boost. And then I'd gain a Spadef boost, and then I'd get a big hit off into Kyogre. And I would be able to clinch that out because I would obviously go for Lightning into Kyogre, and then my Kyogre can come in and just click Thunder. Because we saw as well that it did about 65-ish% to Kyogre max Lightning, and terrain boosted my Thunder would definitely do that much. But again, I just kind of, I don't know why I did. I think what was going through my head was I was too scared to commit to the max right away, and I thought going into Kyogre would pressure them if they brought the same Pokemon as last time, because then they'd be stuck in a situation where they have to go Zacian or they have to go Marshadow, and they will lose one of those Pokemon. Just to me click and Spout, which, I mean, in hindsight is still quite bad, because like Marshadow, if it does come in, it can just go for Sneak, and it's like, okay, well, cool. Like, now I've just lost loads of like health. So I don't know. I think I was playing too quickly, and the fact that I really disliked the format didn't help. But like that's not really an excuse. And you know, being able to watch over these games again is quite nice to, you know, pinpoint like, oh, what could I have done better, you know, actually think about it instead of just being like, oh, bad matchup. But anyways, there you go. There will be more of me playing Masters. I have my run in Sutopolis, which is VGC with no Dynamax, and I've got more of BSPL to come. So I think I've already got like, hold on, there's 4 Sutopolis games. I think I've got like 8. No, maybe it's 10. I don't know. It's around there to go. So hopefully, whatever.